What's up, Raider Nation? One of the things that I think is really important for us to understand is that champions aren't just strong, they're also caring. And that's why today I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about empathy. This won't be a very long video, but even though it's short, that doesn't mean that it's not important. So let's get locked in really quick. So, first of all, what is empathy, right? Empathy is the ability to understand or to share the feelings of other people. Um, it's not necessarily the same thing as sympathy, and I'll let you guys discuss that here when I get finished. But it's the idea of trying to be curious, trying to understand why someone might feel the way they feel, trying to put yourself in their shoes, trying to see the world through somebody else's eyes or from somebody else's point of view. I talk a lot to my teachers about being curious and starting with curiosity and starting with empathy. And the reason why is when you understand someone else's story, when you understand where someone comes from, changes the way you think about them, and it changes the way you think about them in a good way, right? So let me give you a couple of examples maybe. First of all, really simple example. You're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off. Most of us have been there. And a lot of times when that happens, we get really upset and we start judging that person, like how inconsiderate of them. They must be, they're a bad human or whatever. Fill it in the way you want to fill it in, right? But what we don't know is what's actually happening inside their car, right? What if they're on their way to the hospital, right? Does that change your point of view? Does that change your perspective, right? Or you see somebody on their phone when they're driving and you immediately assume like how careless of them, right? But most of us who drive have been guilty of doing the same thing, but we justify it when it's us, right? Because we say things like, "Oh, I'm expecting a text from my boss," or "I'm expecting a text from my mom," and our phone buzzes, and habitually we reach down and grab it. We don't think anything about it when we do it, even though we shouldn't, right? We don't think anything negative about ourselves, but we place that judgment on other people. Again, not knowing what's going on in that other car, right? Those are somewhat silly examples, but real examples of how we don't practice empathy often, right? But if you were to understand that person was in the middle of an emergency, that person was on their way to the hospital or whatever, you would be much more likely to give that person a little bit of grace, right? And that's kind of what I'm talking about. I've got a little bit bigger, maybe more intense or more sad version of this that I'll share. But several years ago, I had a teacher who brought a student down to my office, and she was really frustrated with this particular student. Let's say his name was Josh, all right? And she brought Josh down to the office and was just like, "I can't right now. I'm done. I'm frustrated. I need you to deal with this." I'm like, "Cool." So I got Josh. Josh stayed in my office. Josh and I had a pretty good relationship. I knew Josh had some things going on in his life. And she went back to class, and I was like, "Josh, what's going on?" And Josh said, "Man, I just couldn't wake up. Like I had my head down on my desk. I was like, 'Did you call her any names? Did you do anything, disruptive?'" He's like, "Literally all I did was lay my head down, and I couldn't stay awake." He's like, "Well, what's going on?" He's like, "Well, we got evicted yesterday, and we spent all night moving everything out of our apartment and trying to find some place to store it." I was like, "That's fair." When I found that teacher later that day and told her that story, I had verified it, right? Talked to his dad, and sure enough, that was what happened. Once I had let her know about that story, it immediately changed her, right? She immediately thought, "Oh my gosh, I wish I would have known." And that's where empathy comes in, right? If we take the time to ask a couple more questions, if we take the time to try to understand where people come from, it changes the way we interact with them. It gives us a little bit more patience. It gives us a little bit more grace, right? So that's a huge piece of who we want to be, right? It's not always easy, especially when emotions are involved, right? When you're frustrated, when you're upset with somebody, it's really hard sometimes to practice empathy. I fail that on a regular basis. I meet with people all the time, and I really want to be curious and empathetic, but it's not something that I'm always great at. And so these videos, they're not just for you, they're for me and they're for the staff as well. I want all of us to grow in our ability to be curious about other people and their experiences, to grow in our ability to listen to other people, listen to understand, not to solve their problems, right? Grow in our ability to put ourselves in other people's shoes, grow in our ability to support people when we see that they're struggling, right? To be able to take action and show compassion for people. Those are all big things. So I'm going to kind of wrap up there. Hope you guys have an amazing day, teachers. I've sent 4 discussion questions to go over with your kids today in class. Super grateful for you guys. Tomorrow's Friday. It's going to be an awesome day. And then we start a new week on Monday. And on Monday's video, we're going to talk about how advisory is going to work moving forward. And we're going to really get into some cool stuff here at Richland High School. So thankful for you guys. Have an amazing day. Let's ride.